All right, today on the SBP podcast, we're going to talk about the question of how can a Canadian invest in U.S. real estate? Sorry, that was fun.
You're listening to another BiggerPockets Ask BP podcast, where you'll hear short, direct answers to your biggest real estate questions. Submit your question today on Facebook, Twitter, or the BiggerPockets forums by using hashtag AskBP. And don't forget to pick up your copy of the Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing and other great content when you sign up for your free account at BiggerPockets.com. With that, let's get to the show.
Hey, welcome to the BiggerPockets Ask BP podcast. My name is Brandon, and today we're talking about Canadians. And I suppose if you're from another country as well, this will probably apply to you as well. But we're talking about Canadians. How can Canadians invest in U.S. real estate? How can somebody from outside the U.S. invest in U.S. real estate, especially in Canada? I actually grew up in Minnesota, which is like Canada light, right? So like we all talk kind of Canadian and say Canadian things like gall and and stuff like that, and drink our milk from a bag. I grew up drinking milk from a bag. Anybody else do that? Apparently they do that in Canada. At least they used to. I don't know. Anyway, enough Canadian conversation. I'm not Canadian. However, I did some research on the Canadian stuff before this podcast, and what I found was Canadians can invest in America. You actually can. We don't like guard the border and tell you not to come over and invest in our properties. We actually do allow you to invest in our properties, but you already knew that. Second of all, it can be difficult to obtain loans when you're Canadian. I researched that as well. It can be tough to find loans when you're Canadian, and you might have to look around to a lot of different banks. Now, if you have the cash, it's very easy to invest in U.S. real estate. Just contact a real estate broker in America and, ask them if you can make an offer and then just do it, right? Now, obviously, you need to be careful about what you're buying. I mean, I don't even know if I can say that, but I'm going to because I don't know how, real estate savvy those Canadians are, but make sure you just don't buy something because it's American real estate. Do the numbers, run the math, make sure it pencils out to a good deal. Make sure you plan in for property management, plan in for vacancy, plan in for repairs and all those things, CapEx. Make sure you're not just buying something because you think, oh, it's America, it's going to go up in value. We don't always go up in value. You may want to consider investing with a partner, if you can find a partner in the U.S. I know a few people in Canada have actually done that on BiggerPockets. They find somebody on BiggerPockets that they want to work with who's in America, and then they invest in American real estate together. So that way the person has like boots on the ground. So that way you're not just, if you're a Canadian trying to invest in America, you don't know, that side of the road from that side of the road, and that one's worth twice as much because it's a, better school district. You don't know that stuff. And so when you are, you're Canadian, you got to find a way to know those things, and having boots on the ground in the form of a partner can help. Another way you could do it is using a turnkey company. A turnkey company is a real estate company that exists for, they find properties and then they, usually they'll buy them and then they sell them to you. It's kind of like they're flipping them. They sell them to an investor from out of the area and then they manage the property. In other words, they do everything. And so you just buy the property and then they just take care of it. Now, there's a lot of downsides to turnkey, like you might get a crappy house. You don't really know what you're buying. There could be crappy turnkey companies out there, and it's hard to trust people. Also, I don't know. I like the idea of turnkey. I don't know if I could actually do it necessarily because I like to be in control of my own stuff, and I don't know if I trust people very much. But you could do it. I'm not saying don't do it. I know a lot of people have had success with turnkey companies. It makes me a little bit nervous, so I'm not sure that's the first thing I would jump to. Keep in mind, and one thing when I was doing a lot of research from Canadian writers that were talking about U.S. real estate, there's a lot of tax issues with investing in U.S. real estate. In the way that you structure it, like, are you going to, what kind of entity are you going to put it in? And then when you own Canadian or U.S. real estate from Canada, you're going to have to pay U.S. taxes on that stuff. So you're going to have to file taxes twice. So you might think you're getting a great deal on a rental property that's producing $100 a month in cash flow, which is $1,200 a year. And you're like, wow, I'm getting a good return. And then your taxes end up, like, just to have your taxes prepared ends up being $800. And so then your cash flow goes from $1,200 down to $800. And you're like, that wasn't such a good idea, eh? So instead, just understand that you need to plan for the things like taxes or whatever, or you're going to figure out how to do it yourself. Also, when you sell, there's some tax stuff that you probably should be aware of. So bottom line, I'm not a CPA. Bottom line is make sure you work with a tax specialist who understands both Canadian and U.S. tax law. You've got to find a specialist that can do both. Now, that might be a lot easier to find up there in Canada, but in America, I don't know any tax specialists that specialize in both, but I'm assuming that's because not a lot of people go up to Canada. Not a lot of people go up to Canada to invest in real estate. And so just make sure you find somebody who is good at both Canadian and American real estate. Now, how do you find a good market to invest in while you're in Canada? And this is no matter where you live. How do you find a good U.S. market to invest in? There's a few ways that you could do this. I mean, you could look at the numbers. There's a lot of data out there that exists. I mean, you could look at average purchase price and rental income. You could look at just random. But what I actually recommend is build relationships with investors in America and find out where they're investing. Like find out, if you hear people on BiggerPockets talking about, hey, I bought a house for this, or this is a deal I'm looking at, you can learn a lot about areas by building those relationships. And then you can ask those people questions like, hey, I'm Canadian, I'm trying to buy a house in America. What is that property? I'm looking at this property right here. What do you think of it? What's the neighborhood like? Do you know anything about it? And real life members on BiggerPockets will help you out. They'll actually be like, yeah, this is what, if somebody did that to me, if somebody emailed me and said, hey, I'm thinking about buying this property over here, of course I'm going to tell them what I think. I'll be like, yeah, that's a really terrible neighborhood, but here's what you want to do. Or yeah, just stay away from that one. Or yeah, go ahead. That's a great neighborhood. Good job. Or whatever. That's what BiggerPockets is all about is community-based growing. And so take advantage of that no matter where you live in the country. There's a lot of Canadians on BiggerPockets. So step in, set up a keyword alert for Canada. If you don't know what that means, just go to biggerpockets.com/alerts, ALERTS, and put in the word Canada or Canadian in there. And anytime it gets mentioned on the forums, or, Ontario or Toronto or Alberta or Calgary, or whatever city or province you want, put in there. And then when somebody mentions that on the forums, you'll get a message to your email or to your cell phone if you're a pro member that says that you can, that somebody's talking about you and you should jump in. So that's what keyword alerts are. They're pretty cool. You should probably use them. With that, I think we're gonna get out of here. My head's getting warm with this Canada hat. So let's end with today's quote of the day. And today's quote of the day comes from I think he's Canadian. And now all the Canadians are going to be mad at me if I'm wrong. But today's quote comes from Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky, who says, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." That has long been one of my favorite quotes. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Just because, a lot of people don't ever do anything. They don't ever step out and actually invest in real estate or take control of their financial future or try to achieve those goals and dreams that they have because they're afraid they might fail or they might miss. Like Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of them that you don't take. So at least take some and you might get a few. You might get some bad ones. You might, mess up here and there, make some mistakes. It's okay, because if you don't make those mistakes, you're never going to get what you wanted anyway. So with that, let's get out of here. Let's see. Today's, we got a success quote. The last thing I'm going to leave you with before getting out of here is I just want to invite you again. If you've not yet left a rating and review for the show, I would love if you did. Even if you're in Canada, we'll take your ratings and reviews. With that, let's get out of here. Remember, in pursuit of your dreams, don't just learn, but take action. Go take those shots. Not like, tequila shots, but, hockey. Yeah. You got this. For BiggerPockets and the Ask BP podcast, this is Brandon signing off,
You've just heard another episode of the BiggerPockets Ask BP podcast. Submit your question today on Facebook, Twitter, or the BiggerPockets forum by using hashtag AskBP. And for more incredible real estate investing tools and education, including a free download of our book, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing, head over to BiggerPockets.com and sign up for your free account today. We'll see you on the next show.